One.
What?
Is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the 2012 NBA Redraft. Continuing our series, you can check below in the description. I'll have it linked or right above here for the 2011 video. That was a great one. Make sure to go watch. But without further ado, we're going to jump straight into it. So looking at the first overall pick in this draft, it was Anthony Davis, the star forward out of Kentucky, who was able to win Player of the Year and lead his team to a championship. But Carson, are you going to go a different way here? The New Orleans Hornets are on the clock in this redraft. What are you doing?
I am going to go in a different way. I think AD, at his peak, like fully healthy and everything, I think is a better player than Dame just because, of his elite defense. But, considering injuries, the overall consistency, Dame has 682 games played versus, AD only has 564. Much more durable, much more consistent. And I think, Dame, probably had a better, career in terms of just, getting the playoffs more success in the playoffs than AD did when he was the star of the team. So I'm going to go with Dame with the first pick, just for the consistency, really, less injuries. And I think, Dame and AD just aren't that far off, honestly. I think they're both, pretty close together, and I'm going to go Dame.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, AD was a generational prospect at the time. I mean, had some very great games. Injuries just have has like hurt his career. I mean, we literally just saw it. They lost in game 6 of the first round because AD couldn't play for them in game 6 or game 5. I think it was a huge thing, a real big point. But like you said, Damian Lillard is a winner. He hasn't been able to win a championship in Portland, but he's gotten to the Western Conference Finals before. We know what he can do. He's one of the most clutch players we have seen in the NBA in all time. There's no debate about it. He's got ice in his veins, but we'll move on. So with the second overall pick, the Charlotte Bobcats are on the clock. They took Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who was absolutely a beast in college, but with hindsight, hindsight is 2020. Anthony Davis will be my selection here with the second overall pick out of Kentucky. But, don't really need to say too much about it. Carson, like you mentioned, his peak was absolutely insane. He still is one of the best big men in the league. When he is healthy, he is the best big man. No matter if Joel Embiid and Jokic are out there, this man could put up 45 and 20 if he wanted to, and nobody would be surprised.
And he's one of the best, and he's arguably the best defender.
So I'm helping Michael Jordan out here like I did last episode. So I'm giving Anthony Davis to the Bobcats at the time, Kemba Walker and AD.
Kemba, that's nice.
Can they be successful out there? Who knows? Who knows what it turns around to? So I'm handing it off to Jose. We got the Washington Wizards on the clock. They had previously selected John Wall in 2010. And then John Vesley in 2011, very much so a bad pick. But now they're on the clock. Bradley Beal might be the best player on the board, but I'll leave it to Jose. Who's you got to take for this selection?
I was going to pick whoever was left. I honestly thought you were going AD first overall. So I was going to take whoever was left from Dame or Beal. But since it's only Beal, I'll take Beal. I don't think the Wizards really went wrong here. That's a guy that's been amazing for them. Obviously, like a almost 30-point per game scorer, multiple-time All-Star, number one option on their team. Given they're not necessarily a team, but Beal is who he is, and he's an All-Star. So I'm going Bradley Beal.
Oh.
All right, so we move on to the fourth overall pick. The champs themselves, the Cleveland Cavaliers, just love to find themselves in the top 5 in this era, but they selected Dion Waiters, who I think was really an interesting pick at the time. When you look at it, he was a guy that was a 6th man on a Syracuse team, which really isn't a great program outside of the Carmelo Anthony days. So, Carson, you're going to rewrite history here. I'm assuming you're not taking Dion Waiters. With championship aspirations of this team in the future when LeBron James returns, who's going to be the guy, that Kawhi Leonard and Kemba Walker from last video get to play alongside?
Well, I'm taking the best available player. I'm going to go with Draymond. I think Chris Middleton deserves some consideration for this pick as well. Considering that he's, turned into, a really, really great player. I mean, 50, 40, 90 guy, like 20 points a game with solid defense. But I mean, Draymond at his peak is someone that, at his peak was still, around like a 10 to, anywhere from like a 10 to 14 point per game scorer who's giving you defensive player of the year defense, and not just like one dimensional like Rudy Gobert, but like can guard 1 through 5. He gets a ton of steals, and then he gets out in the break, and he's one of the best players was one of the best players in transition. He is a playmaker, and he can just really play well with anyone. Honestly, he's just, Golden State was of course the best fit for him for his career, but I think you can really plug Draymond into any situation, and he'll just make everyone around him better. I think he's that special of a player, especially from like 2014 to like 2017. I mean, he was such a monster. I'm just all over the place. And I'm gonna go with my guy Draymond.
I believe he's our second highest riser in this series so far, honestly, behind Isaiah Thomas, which no one's gonna pass unless we, it's the undrafted people in there as well. But now the Sacramento Kings on the clock. Obviously, Jose would rather have seen them not taking Thomas Robinson, a guy with amazing potential though coming out of college.
Oh, he was so raw.
Nothing short of
Kansas.
Nothing short of amazing. But I mean, when it comes down to it, he wasn't the answer for them. And I think, with this hindsight, I'm gonna take Chris Middleton, a guy that did take a little bit of while to flourish. Was bouncing around with the Pistons, and then ended up his way in Milwaukee, kind of under the table. But then he's really become that great, second, third option for this Bucks team right now, who's making a strong fight against the Nets in the playoffs as we speak right now. But I'm going to go Chris Middleton. I think even today he would work perfectly, in that Harrison Barnes role alongside De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, and so on and so forth. But I'm rewriting the history. These Sacramento Kings have been terrible drafting the last couple of years, besides hitting on players like Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox. So that's going to be the pick. But now we move on. Portland, unfortunately, loses the opportunity to select Damian Lillard, 6 overall out of Weber State. So now Jose is going to be on the clock. You had the fate of the Portland Trailblazers in your hands. Who are you taking?
I mean, I want to take a guy in Harrison Barnes. Obviously, a guy that is not a number one option. We've seen, him on his own team in Dallas, but a guy that's definitely serviceable and a guy that's elevated the Kings play. Even though we're still not good, he's made us a lot better, and he's definitely one of the best players on our team. I think on this young Trailblazers team at the time, Harrison Barnes would be a great addition to this team. NBA champion too.
Yeah. So one of the best, high school prospects we've seen in a long time, Harrison Barnes, number one recruit, went to UNC. Not, typically a UNC great, but he was definitely good there. So Harrison Barnes is off the board now for the Portland Trailblazers, leaving the Golden State Warriors, who, had a great draft, just missing one pick shy here of Harrison Barnes. We're able to select Harrison Barnes, 7th overall, Festus Ezeli, 30th overall, and then pick up Draymond Green, who just went in this draft. So we have 2 of the picks the Warriors selected in the top 6 already. But Carson, who are you going to take to be out there, playing alongside Clay and Curry?
We just got Bogut. We just traded for him. We gave him Monte Ellis. He's probably the most successful player next in this draft that's available, but I don't really want to take Drummond. We saw how, poorly he played in the playoffs, which just kind of ends up proving my theory that it's just kind of empty stats on, a Detroit team. I'm gonna go with I was just gonna say Evan Fournier, but now I'm low-key thinking about Crowder. But I think I'm still gonna go with Fournier. I think he's a much better scorer than Crowder. Crowder would kind of replace the Harrison Barnes pick, but Fournier is much more successful. I'm gonna go with him. This guy's anywhere from a 14 to 18 point per game scorer. You can slide Clay to the 3 or bring Fournier off the bench. I'm gonna go with him.
So now the Toronto Raptors are on the clock. If we're paying it that they just have their regular roster as of the time being, Jonas Valanciunas is playing for them right now. So they have Jonas Valanciunas, Kyle Lowry, I believe, is coming shortly, and then they got DeMar DeRozan still. So It's an interesting pick here. I mean, you have a lot of guys that can make sense, but I think, you kind of touched on it, Carson. A guy who's one of the best role players in the league was able to make a huge difference in the Suns, making a 4-2 victory over the Lakers. I'm going to take Jake Crowder. I think later on for these teams, I think he would have been excellent playing alongside, being that three guy that they never really had. With DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Jonas Valanciunas, James Johnson, I think he would fit perfectly in that system. It's crazy to think that he'd be a top 10 pick in this redraft because he's not like, the most outstanding player in the NBA. And I just can't take Drummond. I mean, he would
Me
make
neither.
sense. It would
I
make
can't
sense for
take
him to
him.
go in the top 14, but at the same time, I'm going to roll with Jay Crowder being selected here at the 8th overall pick. And that leaves the Detroit Pistons, who can still select their pick in Andre Drummond. But Jose, I'll let you take it away.
My bad. I was on mute.
Yeah.
Can you repeat your last pick real quick?
Yeah, so Jay Crowder to the Toronto Raptors. You are now on the clock. Detroit Pistons. Obviously, Andre Drummond's still on the board, so go ahead.
I'm stuck. I do not want Andre Drummond at all. He's not even on my big board. He's awful. The Detroit Pistons, at my number 9, I've got Will Barton, a wing that can score off the bench, maybe start a little bit. A guy that could definitely contribute, and I think a guy that could help this Pistons team out. So I'm going Will Barton.
Right. A very, I feel like, underrated player in the NBA, a good two-way player in Will Barton. Unfortunately, is injured for these Nuggets right now, so isn't able to play a big role in this playoff run for them. But we got Will Barton going here out of Memphis, giving Carson the 10th overall pick. Where the New Orleans Pelicans, they already got Damian Lillard, but they selected Austin Rivers here, who was an absolutely crazy player, especially you're looking at his high school mixtapes, one of the best players we've seen in terms of high school mixtapes. And he was great at Duke too. Let's not get that wrong. So don't think he's worthy being here, number 10th pick, but Carson, I'll let you say what you got to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna be that far off from Rivers, honestly. I think I'm gonna take someone that's like a slightly taller, much more athletic version, but kind of like the same kind of player, like a kind of, someone that can heat up, a volume shooter who never lacks confidence, for better or for worse, and someone that can really just come off the bench and be like a spark plug and just, get you instant offense. So I'm gonna go with Terrence Ross at number 10. I think just, like I said, just like a more athletic version of kind of what Rivers does. So,
yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I believe he's one of the younger players ever to score, I think, 50 points when he was on the Raptors. Then he's kind of bounced around to a lot of teams now, but he's a solid player for those Orlando Magic right now. Even though they're
their
kind
number one option.
They're a dumpster fire of a team, but he is a still solid scorer. So now back again on the clock of the Portland Trailblazers. Obviously selected Harrison Barnes in the redraft right now with their 6th overall pick, but they selected, let's just ignore who it is. You see the name there. You can look at the screen. We all know what he did. But look at the number 11 pick, and as much as it pains me to say it, I think Andre Drummond has to be the pick here. It would work perfectly alongside, Harrison Barnes, and they just didn't have a big man, to play with. LaMarcus Aldridge allowed him to step out. So I just got to take it, Andre Drummond. I mean, he's a force on the glass, and I think that's what they need out there because that's not what LaMarcus Aldridge is. So I am going to take Andre Drummond with this pick as much as it pains.
Yeah, I mean, his game just doesn't really make as much sense in the modern NBA as like all the other guys we took. But to be fair, he is probably top 5 most successful NBA player in this draft.
Oh, and he's also one of the best rebounders we've ever seen in the last 20 years. So the Houston Rockets here selected Jeremy Lamb, who was a huge instrumental piece in the James Harden trade in OKC. But now he's still a very solid player. Now, don't get me wrong, was very good on those terrible Charlotte Hornet teams just a couple of years ago, averaging about 15 points a game. And obviously hit that huge shot, that buzzer beater in Toronto that everyone knows him for. But Jose, I'll let you take it away at the 12th pick.
12th pick. So the Rockets still don't have Harden, right? At this point, they have not traded for Harden. So they're kind of counting on a shooting guard here. And Jeremy Lamb, I mean, he's a decent player. I don't really want to take him just for the sake of because they took him in the draft. I also don't really think he's that good. So my options are kind of limited. I mean, I've got Sadaransky, Mo Harkless, Mike James, a guy playing a big role in a playoff team right now. But I think I'm going to go with a former Sacramento King, also current Golden State Warrior, Chance the Rapper, a.k.a. Can't 420 Blazemore. Yeah, I'm going with him.
It wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even see him. Oh, shoot.
Damn. So Kent Bazemore, a guy who's been actually a really solid role player throughout his career. He's going 12th overall, the Rockets. Carson, you're on the clock. The Phoenix Suns selected Kendall Marshall. I can tell you he did not pan out. So, I mean, he's a decent player, but was worth a second-round pick at most. But I'll let you take it away. He played 4 seasons in the NBA. Are they going to get a guy that's more productive? So what you got to say?
I like Mo Harkless. I mean, he's like a really solid, like 3-and-D guy. Solid, starter if needed, but most likely, coming off the bench. But I mean, I don't know. I really want to take Dion Waiters here, and I mean, they drafted Marshall, so that they obviously want a guard. So I think I'm gonna go with Dion Waiters because he had some like really really solid moments. I mean, he's like the epitome of hot and cold, but I mean when he's on, and he provides really solid scoring punch.
What was that? It was himself. He ranked himself as a top 5 shooting guard over. I think it was D Wade or something.
Yeah,
he'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 9.
That's some absolute savagery out there. Gotta respect.
Yeah, but he was he was still he was decent.
Oh no, okay. Here's Dion Waiters' top 5 shooting guards from a few years ago: James Harden, Clay, D Wade on the Bulls, Dion Waiters, and then DeMar DeRozan.
Did he leave Harden off? Is that who he left off?
He had to throw himself in there.
No, Harden was 1.
Okay. Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
An obnoxious amount of confidence, but I respect it.
All right. So now I'm back. I'm on the clock. I got the last pick of this draft. Bucks selected John Henson. Didn't really pan out. Had a little bit of confidence in him. Especially I remember back playing 2K, back in those associations, he was always developed well when you eventually would have Giannis on the team. But I think you got to come make a decision here. There's not really a lot of players in this last 2011 draft. We left a lot of good guys off the board with Reggie Jackson, Chandler Parsons, a couple other names. But, I mean, I'm looking here at Jared Sullinger, Tony Roten, Terrence Jones. But let me look at this real quick. I might have to
take Mike James, bro.
Honestly, dude, take Austin Rivers. He deserves to be drafted.
I was just about to do that. A guy who's been very good on this Nuggets team right now. Is playing solid playoff run. I mean, who knows? Maybe on this Bucks team, he's able to have a different chance. He's able to play better, replace Brandon Jennings eventually. So I will take Austin Rivers for the last pick. I think there's you could take someone like Jared Sullinger, but he was just so meh. But I think Austin Rivers in the long run is a guy that could be a solid role player for them in the future. And I just don't know.
He's still going. This is the best part, longevity.
Tony Roten was so inefficient. I guess Thomas Sadaransky or Maurice Harkless are other guys you could look at. But I think a guy that stepped up to the stage in this first round of the playoffs this year has been Austin Rivers. And when he played for the Clippers back in 2017-18, he averaged 15 points a game on 42-38 shooting, which is pretty good. I mean, obviously didn't pan out, but those New Orleans teams were so dysfunctional. He probably would be playing more like those LA Clippers days, starting off his career if he was on a better, run team. So I'll take Austin Rivers to end this redraft, but not the most, crazy one we've seen. I think there's definitely some more when we're going to get into the draft with Giannis and McCollum and all those people. We're going to be taking I don't even know, Ben McLemore 10th overall. It's going to get ugly. So.
Oh yeah, fast too.
It's gonna be crazy. So if you guys don't have anything else to say, I think we conclude this 2012 NBA redraft, and we're gonna be looking forward to 2013, 14, and so forth.
Did y'all know Seth Curry's sister was Austin Rivers' sister was Seth Curry's wife?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it was the whole. Actually, no. I'm thinking about the Paul George, Doc Rivers thing. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, and then and then Seth like swooped in and like now Doc's
Oh
his
yeah,
stepdad.
no. That's what it
Or
is. Yeah, it's linked
It's
that way.
not his stepdad, his father-in-law.
That's some
And
crazy.
then Damian Lee's like dating or I think married to
Yes.
Curry's sister.
Yeah. That's
Dang.
right. Yes, that's just yeah. All right, but without further ado, we're heading out. This has been Coast to Coast Podcast. Thanks for listening. Peace.